Good morning, friends. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Monday. Oh, the dog's on his way with his carrot. Hi. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. It's a giant carrot in my lap. Thank you. Take that over there. Take it. Go ahead. Go take your carrot somewhere else. He's a little full of it this morning, but he's like 12, so his full of it only lasts for like less than 2 minutes usually. Well, I hope you all had a lovely weekend, a time of rest. We had a serious time of rest this weekend. Marin wasn't feeling super great, and so her and I binge watched a series of movies on Saturday all day. And then we were scrolling through Netflix, and she says, "Have you ever seen Young Sheldon?" I'm like, "No, didn't look like anything I would like." She said, "Well, can we try it?" So we're on season 2. We spent the rest of the evening Saturday watching Young Sheldon, and literally we came home from church yesterday, sat on the couch and watched Young Sheldon all day. We took like a 25-minute Nintendo Switch break. But other than that, we watched Young Sheldon all day and laughed our foolish heads off. So that's how we spent our entire weekend. And it's good. It's good to rest, and it's good to hang out with your kid when she's almost 18 and probably won't want to hang out with you because she's going to leave you. All right. After that, February 24th, the appointed festivals, Leviticus 23, 1 through 4. The Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. These are the Lord's appointed festivals, which you are to proclaim as official days for holy assembly. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath day of complete rest and an official day for holy assembly. It is the Lord's Sabbath day, and it must be observed wherever you live. In addition to the Sabbath, these are the Lord's appointed festivals, the official days for holy assembly that are to be celebrated at their proper times each year. Passover and the festival of unleavened bread, Leviticus 23, 5 through 8. The Lord's Passover begins at sundown on the 14th day of the first month. On the next day, the 15th day of the month, you must begin celebrating the festival of unleavened bread. The festival of the Lord continues for 7 days, and during that time, the bread you eat must be made without yeast. On the first day of the festival, all the people must stop their ordinary work and observe an official day for holy assembly. For 7 days, you must present special gifts to the Lord. On the seventh day, people must again stop all their ordinary work to observe an official day for holy assembly. The festival of first fruits, Leviticus 23, 9 through 14. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you enter the land I am giving you and you harvest its first crops, bring a special bundle of grain from the first cutting of your grain harvest. On the day after the Sabbath, the priest will lift it up to the Lord so it may be accepted on your behalf. On that same day, you must sacrifice a 1-year-old male lamb with no defects as a burnt offering to the Lord. With it, you must present a grain offering consisting of 4 quarts of choice flour moistened with olive oil. It will be a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. You must also offer 1 quart of wine as a liquid offering. Do not eat any bread or roasted grain or fresh kernels on that day until you bring the offering to your God. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation wherever you live." The Festival of Harvest, Leviticus 23, 15 through 22. From the day after the Sabbath, the day you bring the bundle of grain to be lifted up as a special offering, count off 7 full weeks. Keep counting until the day after the 7th Sabbath, 50 days later. Then present an offering of new grain to the Lord. From wherever you live, bring 2 loaves of bread to be lifted up before the Lord as a special offering. Make these loaves from 4 quarts of choice flour and bake them with yeast. They will be an offering to the Lord from the first of your crops. Along with the bread, present 7 1-year-old male lambs with no defects, 1 young bull, and 2 rams as burnt offerings to the Lord. These burnt offerings, together with the grain offerings and liquid offerings, will be a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Then you must offer one male goat as a sin offering and 2 one-year-old male lambs as a peace offering. The priest will lift up 2 lambs as a special offering to the Lord, together with the loaves representing the first of your crops. These offerings, which are holy to the Lord, belong to the priest. That same day will be proclaimed an official day for Holy Assembly, a day on which you do no ordinary work. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation wherever you live. When you harvest the crops of your land, do not harvest the grain along the edges of your field, and do not pick up what the harvesters drop. Leave it for the poor and the foreigners living among you. I am the Lord your God. The Festival of Trumpets. Leviticus 23 through 25. The Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to your people of Israel, to the people of Israel. On the first day of an appointed month in early autumn, you are to observe a day of complete rest. It will be an official day for Holy Assembly, a day commemorated with loud blasts of a trumpet. You must do no ordinary work on that day. Instead, you are to present special gifts to the Lord." A Day of Atonement, Leviticus 23:26 through 32. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Be careful to celebrate the Day of Atonement on the 10th day of that same month, 9 days after the Festival of Trumpets. You must observe it as an official day for Holy Assembly, a day to deny yourselves and present special gifts to the Lord. Do no work during that entire day because it is the Day of Atonement, when offerings of purification are made for you, making it right with the Lord your God. All who do not deny all who do not deny themselves that day will be cut off from God's people, and I will destroy anyone among you who does any work on that day. You must not do any work at all. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation wherever you live. This will be a Sabbath day of complete rest for you, and on that day you must deny yourselves. This day of rest will begin at sundown on the 9th day of the month and extend until sundown on the 10th day. The Festival of Shelters, Leviticus 23:33 through 44. And the Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. Begin celebrating the Festival of Shelters on the 15th day of the appointed month, 5 days after the Day of Atonement. This festival to the Lord will last for 7 days. On the first day of the festival, you must proclaim an official day for Holy Assembly, when you do no ordinary work. For 7 days, you must present special gifts to the Lord. The 8th day is another holy day on which you present your special gifts to the Lord. This will be a solemn occasion, and no ordinary work may be done that day. These are the Lord's appointed festivals. Celebrate them each year as official days for Holy Assembly by presenting special gifts to the Lord: burnt offerings, grain offerings, sacrifices, and liquid offerings, each on the proper day. These festivals must be observed in addition to the Lord's regular Sabbath days, and the offerings are in addition to your personal gifts, the offerings you give to fulfill your vows, and the voluntary offerings you present to the Lord. Remember that this 7 day festival to the Lord, the Festival of Shelters, begins on the 15th day of the appointed month. After you have harvested all the produce of the land, the first day and the 8th day of the festival will be days of complete rest. On the first day, gather branches from magnificent trees, palm fronds, boughs from leafy trees, and willows that grow by the streams. Then celebrate with joy before the Lord your God for 7 days. You must observe this festival to the Lord for 7 days every year. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed in the appointed month from generation to generation. For 7 days you must live outside in little shelters. All native-born Israelites must live in the shelters. This will remind each new generation of the Israelites that I made their ancestors live in shelters when I rescued them from the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God." So Moses gave the Israelites these instructions regarding the annual festivals of the Lord. I can't read. Oh. Pure oil and holy bread, Leviticus 24:1 through 9. The Lord said to Moses, "Command the people of Israel to bring you pure oil of pressed olives for the light, to keep the lamps burning continually. This is a lampstand that stands in the tabernacle in front of the inner curtain that shields the Ark of the Covenant. Aaron must keep the lamps burning in the Lord's presence all night. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation. Aaron and the priests must tend to the lamps on the pure gold lampstand continually in the Lord's presence. You must bake 12 flat loaves of bread from choice flour, using 4 quarts of flour for each loaf. Place the bread before the Lord on the pure gold table and arrange the loaves in 2 stacks, with 6 loaves in each stack. Put some frankincense near each stack to serve as a representative offering, a special gift presented to the Lord. Every Sabbath day, this bread must be laid out before the Lord as a gift from the Israelites. It is an ongoing expression of the eternal covenant. The loaves of bread will belong to Aaron and his descendants, who must eat them in a sacred place, for they are most holy. It is a permanent right of the priest to claim this portion of the special gifts presented to the Lord. An example of just punishment, Leviticus 24:10 through 23. One day, a man who had an Israelite mother and an Egyptian father came out of his tent and got into a fight with one of the Israelite men. During the fight, the son of an Israelite woman blasphemed the name of the Lord with a curse. So the man was brought to Moses for judgment. His mother was Shelomith, the daughter of Dibri of the tribe of Dan. They kept the man in custody until the Lord's will in the matter should become clear to them. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Take the blasphemer outside the camp and tell all of those who heard the curse to lay their hands on his head. Then let the entire community stone him to death. Say to the people of Israel, those who curse their God will be punished for their sin. Anyone who blasphemes the name of the Lord must be stoned to death by the whole community of Israel. Any native-born Israelite or foreigner among you who blasphemes the name of the Lord must be put to death. Anyone who takes another person's life must be put to death. Anyone who kills another person's animal must pay for it in full, a live animal for the animal that was killed. Anyone who injures another person must be dealt with according to the injury inflicted, a fracture for a fracture, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Whatever anyone does to injure another person must be paid back in kind. Whoever kills an animal must pay for it in full, but whoever kills another person must be put to death. This same standard applies to both native-born Israelites and to the foreigners living among you. I am the Lord your God." After Moses gave all these instructions to the Israelites, they took the blasphemer outside the camp and stoned him to death. The Israelites did just as the Lord had commanded Moses. The Sabbath year, Leviticus 25:1 through 7. While Moses was on Mount Sinai, the Lord said to him, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you have entered the land I am giving you, the land itself must observe a Sabbath rest before the Lord every 7th year. For 6 years you may plant your fields and prune your vineyards and harvest your crops, but during the 7th year the land must have a Sabbath year of complete rest. It is the Lord's Sabbath. Do not plant your fields or prune your vineyards during that year, and don't store away the crops that grow on their own, or gather the grapes from your unpruned vines. The land must have a year of complete rest, but you may eat whatever the land produces on its own during its Sabbath. This applies to you, your male and female servants, your hired workers, and the temporary residents who live with you. Your livestock and wild animals in your land will also be allowed to eat what the land produces." The year of Jubilee, Leviticus 25:8 through 23. In addition, you must count off 7 Sabbath years, 7 sets of 7 years, adding up to 49 years in all. Then on the Day of Atonement, in the 50th year, blow the ram's horn loud and long throughout the land. Set this year apart as holy, a time to proclaim freedom throughout the land for all who live there. It will be a Jubilee year for you, when each of you may return to the land that belonged to your ancestors and return to your own land. The 50th year will be a Jubilee for you. During that year, you must not plant your fields or store away any of the crops that grow on their own. And don't gather the grapes from your unpruned vines. It will be a Jubilee year for you, and you must keep it holy. But you may eat whatever the land produces on its own. In the year of Jubilee, you may each return to the land that belonged to your ancestors. When you make an agreement with your neighbor to buy or sell property, you must not take advantage of each other. When you buy land from your neighbor, the price you pay must be based on the number of years since the last Jubilee. The sellers must set the price by taking into account the number of years remaining until the next year of Jubilee. The more years until the next Jubilee, the higher the price. The fewer the years, the lower the price. After all, the person selling the land is actually selling you a certain number of harvests. Show your fear of God by not taking advantage of each other. I am the Lord your God. If you want to live securely in the land, follow my decrees and obey my regulations. Then the land will yield large crops, and you will eat your fill and live securely in it. But you might ask, what will we eat during the 7th year, since we are not allowed to plant or harvest crops that year? Be assured that I will send my blessing for you in the 6th year, so the land will produce a crop large enough for 3 years. When you plant your fields in the 8th year, you will be eating from a large crop of the 6th year. In fact, you will still be eating from that large crop when the new crop is harvested from the 9th year. And the land must never be sold on a permanent basis, for the land belongs to me. You are foreigners and tenant farmers working for me. Okay. Okay. All right, back to our book, Learning to Live Above. You are absolutely full of it this morning. As soon as I show you, he'll stop doing it. You watch. He's flinging it up over his head and catching it. See? As soon as I turn the camera, he lays down. He's flinging it up and catching it. Turn the camera, he looks away. All right, we are on chapter 41. This is called the Seal of Approval. 2 Corinthians 1:22 says, who also has sealed us and given us the Spirit in our hearts as a guarantee. This is one of those days when I feel that everything I do falls short. Do you ever have those days? I look in the mirror and there's a lot more wrong than there is right. My face is broken out like a teenager. My hair has a mind of its own, and my style somehow got stuck in the 80s. I look at how I manage my money and wonder where I would be if I had taken all the money we used for eating out and invested it instead. Not to mention how thin I would be. I go down the list. As a mother, I've made so many mistakes. As a wife, I haven't been supportive enough. As a friend, I don't call enough. Then it comes, the knockout punch. I look at my life as a Christian. Wow, I fall dreadfully short. I don't read enough, pray enough, fast enough, or serve enough. Thus, I find myself sitting in my chair, disappointed and discouraged. I do not feel like praying or asking God for help because I know that He must be even more disappointed in me than I am. How can I even face Him? As I was sitting in my despair, the Lord spoke to me and said, "You are wearing disapproval." I thought that was such a peculiar phrase to say that I was wearing disapproval. So I went to the Bible to look up something I could find about approval and disapproval. In John 6:27, we see that God has placed His seal of approval upon Jesus. That part is not especially hard to believe, but the next part is a little more difficult to accept as true. We find out in 2 Corinthians 1:22 and Ephesians 1:13 that when we accepted Christ as our Savior, we are also marked in Him with the same seal. The use of the word seal comes from a stamp created by the signet ring worn by a king. Documents declaring the king's will and purpose would bear this seal to authenticate the record. A document, no matter how torn, wrinkled, or primitive, embossed with the king's seal could not be revoked. It was not the document, but the seal that made the deed worthy. It is amazing that God would use this symbol to represent the way He looks at us. When we become Christians, we receive everything through Christ that He receives, including God's seal of approval. Despite our weakness and failures, God chose to stamp us with His seal, which authenticates who we are in Christ. We may be tattered and torn, but because of His seal, we are accepted and approved. Now, that does not mean that God approves of every action that we may do, but He does approve of us. For some of us, the distinction is hard to make, but it is an important one. For example, when my son was 2 years old, I told him not to hit his older brother. Consequently, he disobeyed me and had to reap the consequences. That action, however, did not change the way I looked at him. He is my child. Regardless of anything he does, I love and accept him. Everything we receive from God comes not from our own works, but through grace by faith. We do not deserve any of it, not the forgiveness of sins, not the personal relationship with Christ, not the unlimited provision, and not the seal of approval. But because of Christ's sacrifice, we are able to take hold of all of it. So let's go back to the words that God gave me about wearing disapproval. When I listed all of the faults and disappointments that I have, I believed that a seal of disapproval was on my life. I wore a seal that declared I was a failure and worth nothing. But that is a direct contradiction of God's word. Because of my relationship with Jesus, God gave me a seal of approval that declares I am His child and worth a great deal to Him. Though I may fail Him many times, He forgives me and accepts me just as I am. I'll finish with a dream that God gave me many years ago. My youngest son, Nicholas, was in second grade. In my dream, Nicholas was in his class at school and he answered a question incorrectly. The teacher made him wear a dunce cap and sit on a stool in front of the room. All of the kids were laughing and making fun of him. The teacher directed the students to think up names and write them on a sheet of paper. They wrote names like stupid, dummy, and no good. She took each name and hung it around Nicholas' neck and told him that he would have to wear the sign everywhere he went for the entire day. I saw him walking to lunch with the kids laughing and pointing. Then I saw him going to gym class while the teacher and the children mocked him. Then I saw his face up close. Tears were streaming down his cheeks, and he wore a look of shame. Then the Lord asked me, "How do you feel?" I told him that I was furious and heartbroken. I wanted to take my son in my arms and hold him close to me and tell him how wonderful I thought he was. Then I wanted to fight every person who laughed or made fun of him. The Lord replied, "That is how I feel every time you allow the enemy to hang signs on you that you are no good. You are mine, and you are fearfully and wonderfully made." What seal are you wearing? Reminds me of our labels discussion last year at retreat, cutting off the labels t-shirt. It also reminds me of the time when Marin was in 5th grade and the teacher took a video of her backpack area because all the other kids' backpacks were super neat and lined up, and Marin's was a mess and falling apart and things were falling on the floor. And she took pictures and put it on the video in front of the entire class and told the class, "This is not how you take care of your things." That's what it made me think of. I started to get a little agitated in the middle of the middle of her talking about her dream, because I'm like, oh yeah, that's actually a reality for some people. I'm still mad about it. Can you tell? She's going to be a senior next year, and I'm still seething about that teacher doing that. I obviously have let it go. Oh my goodness. The year crop planting cycle was similar to when they were in the desert and they didn't collect manna on. Yeah, it is. Isn't that faith? All right. All right, my friends. Well, now he's laid down. Now that I've decided devotions is over, he's gone ahead and laid down next to his carrot. Babsy. Sebastian. Are you being a naughty boy today? Are you being naughty? Disruptive. Huh? Is that you on there? Do you see you on there? Do you see the Bassy on there? Huh? Is that you? What are you doing? Why are you so stinking cute? I homeschooled immediately after that, Lois. Yeah, it was about 4 weeks later when she was home. And I was seething. I couldn't. Yep. And that brought us home, and we've been home ever since, and it's the best decision we ever could have made, is homeschooling. Best thing we ever did. Takes bullying out of the equation from students or teachers. Takes it right out of the equation. And that's what that teacher was, in my opinion, was a bully. Bully behavior. But anyway, that's another conversation for another day. Let's go ahead and end in prayer. God, our Father, we thank you for drawing us together today, and thank you for your word and for the reminder of your love for us, and the reminder today of the label that we do wear, the seal of your approval. God, help us to focus on that today and remember just how loved and cherished we are as children of God. God, I pray for everyone here today and the many struggles they might be going through and all the things going on in their lives. You know the concerns, you know each and every one of them. Nothing that is happening in anybody's life here is a surprise to you. Help us to just focus on you today when the struggles seem bigger than we can handle. God, we lift up the family of Becky McKelkey today as they get ready to lay her to rest today. And I just thank you for her life and the blessing that she was to so many of us. And I just pray for her family that you would comfort them and just bring them a peace that surround them, that peace that passes all understanding, God. And we just thank you for the life of Becky. God, as we go through our day today, help us to honor you with every decision we make, with every word that we choose, every action we take, and every food that we choose to eat. Help us to honor you with our bodies and our hearts. In your precious name I pray. Amen. I'm being attacked by a golden retriever. What are you doing? I really don't want this toy. Can you ask your sister next time not to pick out the most obnoxious toy in the store? This is his favorite toy. We've bought him like 5 toys since then. Nope, this is still the favorite. He snuggles with it. He plays with it. Yeah. Hi. Thank you for slime and just him doing this. Look at my legs. Can you see my legs? Can you see the dog hair? Look at this. What are you doing there, Bass? What are you doing? All right. Hey, knock it off. I bought some oat groats. So I want to look up, it's been years. The only time I've ever had oat groats, somebody else made them for me. So I kind of want to make those for breakfast. I could use some more rumbling tummy, and I think that would help. So I'm going to look up how to make oat groats, and I'm going to look, Meredith, and see if I have cherries. Are you doing it with cottage cheese? I don't know if I haven't. I don't think I have any cherries, so I may have to do something different. I might just do a Neapolitan this morning, but I'm going to look up how to cook oat groats, and then we'll have them together. You can all try them with me. It's been years. I think I'm going to love them. So, all right. I hope to see you there for breakfast. If not, I'll see you all back tomorrow for devotions. I love it. Oh, wait. I might have hold on. I just told you I'm going to go live, and I think I actually might have a 9 o'clock appointment. Hold on. Oh, no, never mind. It's